Hey, welcome to the Conversations podcast, where we believe conversations create change. I am your host, Mike, and I am here with my beautiful wife, Stephanie. Welcome to episode 4
You are so excited.
of the Conversations podcast. Let's go. How you doing, babe?
I'm doing great.
It's so good to see you.
It's good. Well, I've been seeing you, but it's good to see you here.
Well, I'm always seeing you.
Okay. Listen, we're so thankful for your love, for your support. I just want to say that we love you guys so much. Thank you for every like, every subscribe, every comment. It makes every difference in the world, and it really means the world to us.
100%. So follow us on the Instagram.
Yeah.
Listen to us on the Spotify. Listen to us again on the Apple Podcasts.
Watch us on YouTube.
And YouTube Shorts. And the TikTok, which is what my parents call TikTok. So please follow us on all those things. Subscribe where you need to subscribe so that you can continue to join us in on the conversation. But I am extremely excited for today's topic. But also, today's just been a day, bro.
It's been a day. It's been a good day, full day. But
it's been a full day. It's been a full day. We had church in the morning.
Yeah, you preached a phenomenal message.
Thank you so much. I preached on, actually, what did I preach on? I just want to see if you were listening.
You preached on revival.
You're awesome.
Are you testing me right
No, never that. But yeah, I had the opportunity to preach on revival for our series called Windsor Revival, and I had the best time today. Shout outs to Real Life Orlando. Today was a very full day. Church was awesome. And today we're recording our podcast, episode 4. And I think before we jump into the topic, we should probably update our listeners.
Yeah.
Watchers.
On what?
Our conversationalists. What should we call, like, our listeners on the Conversations podcast?
They're just our people.
Our peeps, but like, our conversationalists,
No.
our talkers.
Oh God, no.
Our victory vulnerable leaders.
What?
Anyways, I think we should just update our people on how life has been recently.
Yeah.
Life with you has always been amazing. It's you're like, oh.
I don't know where you're going with this. So
Okay, we just came back from vacation.
okay, got it.
And vacation was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Camp Creek. By the way, Camp Creek, if you're watching today, I just want to say that you should completely sponsor Camp Creek Inn Water Sound Resort. You should completely sponsor Steph and I to stay on your property for free all the time. And we will always give you a shout out. But it was amazing. We had an amazing trip together. But the reason that this happened was because some of our friends, Emmy and Tyrone McLeod, they just, by the way, how strong is that last name? McLeod. Tyrone, if you're watching, I love you. They're in Costa Rica right now, so I doubt that they're watching. But I just love them. I had the opportunity to officiate their wedding in Defuniak Springs, the forest of Florida.
Yes.
But we decided to spend a couple extra days on the beautiful beaches of 38.
Yeah.
Talk about it. What'd you like?
It was awesome.
It was amazing.
I love it because life has been so busy.
Yeah,
recently.
You ate so many acai bowls.
I had an acai bowl like twice a day.
You literally turned it into an acai fruit. You had so much acai. It's like, babe, it's breakfast time. Can we get an acai bowl? Sure. It's snack time. Can we get another acai bowl? It's like, my gosh, like, there's a whole food pyramid.
It was so good.
Anyways, continue. Shout outs to Raw and Juicy. Raw and Juicy.
Oh,
if
God.
you're watching, I'm kidding. Go on.
Okay. I love it because life has been really full lately.
Yeah.
And I just love that we had an opportunity to just disconnect for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that we got to disconnect in order for us to reconnect to each other and to ourselves and to God. And sometimes, like life can be so full and so demanding and things are constantly, calling for our attention. There's, for parents, there's kids demanding your attention. There's work demanding your attention. There's life demanding your attention. There's like so many life demands. And sometimes we can like just be grinding and going full force. And I just love that we had the opportunity to kind of disconnect a little bit. And retreat. And it was really good for us.
Yeah, I do love that. I do love the fact that we had the opportunity to retreat because you and I are very type A type people. Like, we like to run at 1,000,000 miles per hour. It's like, we're going to do this.
I think you like to run faster than me.
We're going to go.
But yes.
It's like, yo, chill, bro. relax. But yeah, I think it was a great opportunity for us to disconnect, to rest. And I think it's so important just to do that just in marriage, period.
Yeah.
Which I think really today what we want to talk about, especially because this is something that we already know is important.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the most simple things that are the most difficult to implement.
That's right.
Like we know that rest is extremely important.
Yeah.
But if we're not intentional about rest, we can completely miss it. And I think sometimes I've fallen and I have been a victim to my calendar. I have let my calendar run my life rather than me running my calendar.
Yeah.
Simply because I haven't found time to just disconnect. I love what you said. We're disconnecting in order to reconnect to ourselves and reconnect to each other.
Yeah.
And I think for anybody who's in a relationship, I think margin is key. I think it's so important to find moments, times, spaces where you and your partner, you and your spouse can take a moment to just reconnect with each other.
That's right. And I love that you had a little bit of a moment of vulnerability there.
Oh.
Yeah. Because, yeah, because you have a hard time. You have a hard time saying no sometimes.
I do.
Yeah.
It's because I have this thing called FOMO.
Oh, God.
It's like doctor diagnosed.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. The fear of missing out.
Yep.
Like I just want to be a part of everything. I think it's because I'm an Enneagram 7, which people tell me because I know nothing about the Enneagram. But I can't even spell Enneagram. But I'm also just like I'm an extrovert, you know. So like wherever the party is where I want to be.
You are the party.
I don't know if I'm the party because I can be in a room full of people and that gives me so much energy and I can just not say anything.
It's
just being in a chaotic environment for some reason just fills my soul.
And I am the complete opposite.
You are the complete opposite. You
that
are
completely depletes my soul.
Oh, wow, you really said that with some passion. Depletes my soul. Depletes. Actually, we should talk about this because sometimes you say words really funny.
No.
Like, remember when we went to Starbucks?
Don't throw me under the bus, please.
I just want to say, Starbucks, if you're watching,
my God.
I'm totally kidding. Because listen, it's chestnut praline season. If you've never had a chestnut praline,
it is pretty good.
You're missing out on life. A chestnut praline is like heaven and earth collided in a coffee cup.
Oh my gosh.
And they made this perfect drink at Starbucks called the chestnut praline. Anyways, we go to Starbucks because we're visiting.
I can't believe you're going to share this right now.
Because we're going to go visit our amazing friends, Emily and Matt, who just had a beautiful baby boy. Shout outs to Brooks.
Yes.
By the way, I think he liked me more than he liked you. But we don't have to talk about it. It's okay. We don't have to talk about it. But on the way there, they asked us to bring them some Starbucks. We're like, absolutely. We're always looking for an excuse to drink coffee.
Actually, we offered, but yes.
Oh, that's how it went. Yes, we did offer. So our friend, we both ordered chestnut pralines.
Yeah.
You had an oat milk because you have a dairy issue. Let's not talk about that.
Okay. Bro, you're just throwing me out there under the bus for everyone to listen.
Pray for my wife and her dairy issue. It's really bad. Like it's
okay.
I'm sorry. Moving on. So we ordered these chestnut pralines. They're delicious, absolutely amazing. Starbucks, if you're watching, send us free chestnut pralines. You never know. Sponsorships are important for podcasters. Okay.
We have a sponsorship.
We're on the pod. And then our friend wants a certain latte, and when you order the latte,
oh my gosh,
you say, "Hi, can I have a pecan latte?"
I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe you're saying this out loud.
A pecan latte.
I got nervous.
And the lady was like, "You mean pecan?" Which, by the way, I don't think it's pecan.
I don't know. I thought it was pecan.
It's definitely not pecan.
That sounds like what I said.
No, it does not. Oh my gosh, you know what this reminds me of?
Oh no.
That one time we went to Burger King. By the way, Rebecca, if you're watching, a personal trainer, we didn't go to Burger King for us. It was for a friend. Remember that one time we went to Burger King?
No, we were dying of laughter. We could barely order.
All right, I'm going to tell the story, and then you're going to say what we heard.
Okay.
Okay, we pull up to Burger King because our friends are hungry, so we're going to go and we're going to pick up some food for them. And then we pull up to the driveway, and then you hear on the speaker.
Hold on. Okay, ready? I'm going to get in persona here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome to Burger King, where you rule.
She was miserable. But shout outs to her for doing her job and saying the slogan, "Welcome to Burger King, where you rule. How may I help you?" We absolutely
that was funny.
It was.
Where were we?
I have no idea. Oh, we were talking about, we went so deep into this. We were talking about disconnecting so that we can reconnect with each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's super important for marriages to do this.
Yeah.
Because again, you and I, we are very type A. We're very much like, we're doers. We like to fill our calendars. I've got an extreme case of FOMO. So if like my friends want to go to a party, it's like, let's go to the party. If they want to go out to coffee, it's like, let's go out to coffee. If there's a church event on a Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, I want to be at that church event. I can make the mistake of filling my calendar. And I don't know about you. I'm not going to speak for you, although I know what the answer is. I don't know about you, but when I fill up my calendar and I don't make time for margin for myself or for us, I'm truly not my best self.
Yeah.
Like, we really do need these moments where we can disconnect in order to reconnect to ourselves, reconnect to our relationship with each other, reconnect with God.
Yeah.
And I love what you said earlier. One of the things that you said is that we needed to retreat in order to advance.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think sometimes like we can almost look at rest as something that we need to deserve, right? So like, I need to grind, I need to work, and then eventually I can deserve to rest.
Right.
But without rest, we can't progress.
That's so
right?
good.
And so rest has to be a priority.
Right.
You know, it's not something that you just deserve. It's actually something that you need.
Yeah.
So if you want to advance, sometimes you have to retreat. Taking a step back is not just, oh, I'm taking steps backwards. No, sometimes you have to actually take a step back in order for you to go forward, in order for you to be grounded and gain the clarity and gain the wisdom and gain the energy, you know, that you need in order to go forward. And so a lot of people I know feel this sense of guilt when they're resting, you know, and they feel like they're not being productive.
Right.
Sometimes the most productive thing that you can do is rest.
Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes the most productive thing that you can do is retreat. You know, I know that was true for us. Like in this little staycation that we had, we were able to retreat and we were able to create space for fun.
Yes.
We created space for intimacy.
We did.
You know, emotional intimacy, physical
My favorite part.
Okay. And then we also created space, you know, for us to gain some clarity, to have some tough conversations, you know, some conversations that we've placed a pin on because life has been full, and we were able to just create some space to have those conversations so that we can gain some clarity.
I love that.
So that when we came back to the fullness of our life, we had an understanding, a clear picture of how we were going to show up, you know, to the rest of this year.
100%. And I think one of the things that's important to know when we're talking about rest is that we don't rest because we're tired. We rest so that we don't get tired.
Yeah.
God created us from a place of rest at first.
So good.
That's why he created the Sabbath. He created a day, a moment, a rhythm for us to rest. Why? Because when we are restful, like you said, we can progress better, and we are most effective when we're doing it from a place of rest.
Yeah.
I almost love this illustration of a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes for a person like me, it feels like some tension for me when I'm having to make a decision to take a step backwards, because I'm so type A. I'm so like, let's move the needle. Like, let's make things happen. Let's go forward. But just like a bow and arrow needs some tension, like the arrow needs some tension to be pulled back. That's the same thing that happens with rest. Rest is an opportunity for you to be pulled back so that God can catapult you to where it is that you need to go.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things about rest is that rest is worship.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Rest
is worship. And what rest does is that rest communicates to God, God, I've done everything that I could. Everything that I could. What rest communicates to God is, I'm going to lay down and I'm going to relax because I know that you have the rest of this under control. Yeah. The things that I have not been able to do, I call that the faith space. That's the space where I get to rest and I get to let God work and do his thing.
Yeah.
And I think when we're constantly in the grind, we're doing the opposite of actually living a life of rest.
Yeah.
I think there's a healthy balance, right? Like we see in the narrative of creation in Genesis, chapter 1, we see that God creates for 6 days, but that he does take this day where he established his rest. So there's a rhythm. Some people live on spectrums where like all they do is rest, but they're not effective. And then there's the other spectrum where all they do is like they're busy, but they don't rest, you know? So I love that rest is worship. Rest is an opportunity for me to say, God, I've done everything that you can with what you've placed in my hands. I'm going to trust you with the rest. I know that you're working for me when I'm resting in your presence and taking a moment to disconnect.
That's beautiful. And, you know, I think obviously we're talking about a little staycation that we had, but we also incorporate this in our daily and weekly life. I think for some time there, life got so full that we kind of lost the rhythm of incorporating and being intentional, which is why this was almost like a reset, right?
And we lost some important things in that too.
Yeah.
Like we lost like the rhythm of fun, the rhythm of intimacy, the rhythm of clarity.
Yeah.
And these are 3 things that you can experience regularly.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to live in a space of, I need a retreat, I need a vacation so that I can have fun and be intimate and gain clarity. We can actually incorporate. Oh God, I know what you're going to say.
What?
You're going to say, well, actually, I'll let you, I know it has something to do with traveling. Go for it.
What did you think I was going to say?
We should live in Europe. Oh my God.
Let's go to Italy for a whole month.
Yeah, of course you are.
I wish we could.
Yeah, I wish we could too. I wish we could too. One day we will.
Yes.
One day we will. But I think the important thing to know is that rest doesn't have to be an extreme action.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this extreme, I'm retreating for a whole month or 2 months because my life is so chaotic. In fact, I think you can live with consistency. You can live effectively if you learn how to properly incorporate rhythms of rest in your life.
That's right. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be like this staycation or this vacation, right?
Yeah.
It's you being intentional with your time. Is time or is your calendar running you, or are you running your calendar? Do you have moments of intentionality where you're actually scheduling this? Because if you're not careful, like life can get so full, you know, and this can happen to us, you know, oftentimes in the year. Where you lose that level of intentionality. You know, are you scheduling time with your spouse, intentional time for you to go on a date night? Are you scheduling, you know, intentional time to spend and to pour into your spiritual life? You know, are you spending intentional time with people that you love? Like these things take intentionality.
100%.
You know, and so sometimes like we can lose sight of that, and then life is just kind of happening to us, and then we feel so out of control. Because we're not really controlling the things that are within our control.
And you have to fight for it too. Like you have to fight for the things that you want to be intentional with. Because I know that one of the things that we've always tried to incorporate as soon as we got married was the concept of date nights.
Yeah.
And for us, it's on Friday nights. Like we know that on Fridays, like we want to separate these days out of the week, no matter how life goes, no matter how chaotic it gets. We want to make sure that we have this Friday where it's for you and I. It's an opportunity for us to find rest in each other. And there have been moments in seasons where we have let our calendar dictate whether or not we have date nights.
And our marriage, you know, plays a toll in that. Like our level of emotional intimacy and our physical intimacy and our connection, you know, feels distant. But that's because we're creating the distance with our lack of intentionality.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, the things that really matter in life, they're not just going to happen, you know, they're not just going to happen.
Yeah.
You actually have to be intentional.
Yeah, it has to be intentional, which, by the way, I think it's like such a practical step, maybe for anybody who's watching here today, where maybe you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, and you're like, you just feel like you're two ships, like just passing each other by. And it might be a number of things, but oftentimes it's usually because of lack of intentionality.
Yeah.
So maybe we can encourage you, like, maybe choose a time on your calendar. Maybe there's a day out of the week. Maybe it's a lunch break, whatever it might be. Like choose a day out of the week where it's like, hey, this is date time.
Yeah.
We're going to put this on the calendar. Nothing is going to get in between this. We're going to make this a priority on our list so that our marriage doesn't pay the price for us having super busy or full schedules.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, you know, an extensive date night. You know, I think of, for example, there's a lot of couples that I see that are new parents or just parents of young kids, and they have to be in, you know, in bed at a certain time. And it's like, hey, when you put the kids down, like spend some 15 minutes of your time just connecting, staring at each other, you know, making intentional eye contact, catching each other up. How was your day? And just being intentional at that time. Have some fun. You know, it doesn't always have to be like very serious, you know. Play a game, you know, like make a puzzle.
Oh Lord, I cannot.
I've been trying to get Mike to
we're going to try a puzzle. You bought like a 500 or 1,000 piece puzzle.
It was just a 500.
We're
going to try to ease you into it.
We will try it. As a matter of fact, date night next week, we will start doing this puzzle together.
All right, I'm going to test you on that. You put it out there, so I'm going to keep you accountable.
I do it. I think once we finish the puzzle, we should like show it. Like, ta-da, we did our puzzle, guys. Let's celebrate, you know?
Yeah. You know, but it doesn't have to be, you know, something so extensive. It can be moments, you know, like of turning towards each other and actually being intentional. It could be a daily check-in. And then you have, you know, a monthly date night, you know, but something that is scheduled, that is intentional, that's on the calendar where both of you are on the same
rhythm.
Page. Yeah.
Yeah. It's creating a rhythm, you know, and sometimes rhythms don't have to be so strict. Like we're not saying every single week have a date night. What we are saying is be intentional about whatever works for you.
And I love that you say rhythm, because the music of our life changes. Like it's not always on the same beat, right? So that's why I love using the word rhythm.
I feel like the music of your life is usually reggaeton.
It's like salsa. It changes.
Oh, got it. Okay, go ahead. Continue. The rhythm of my life is worship, because I'm a man of God. I'm kidding. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
I cannot with you.
So dumb. Okay, rhythm, music.
Exactly. You know, I love that you use that word rhythm.
Yeah.
You know, because like the rhythm of our life is going to change according to the seasons of life. Right. You know, and so it makes you flexible. You know, right now you and I get to spend a whole lot of time because we don't have kids yet.
Yeah.
You know?
What was it that our friend called us? Dinks. We were like, "What you say? Say it to my face, dog."
Dual income, no kids.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started though.
No, let's not.
It's a sensitive subject.
It is.
I just want to say, like, you just never know what people are going through.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, behind closed doors, and so maybe don't put your pressure of a timeline or like, you know, on different people. Yeah. Especially married people that don't have kids yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a different conversation.
Episode 75.
Okay. Okay, proceed.
Yeah. So like you said, I think it's really important for us to incorporate rhythms into our life, you know, because there are people who are watching who have kids.
Yeah.
And the rhythm of having a child is just, sometimes it can be very, very hectic.
Yeah. Or an entrepreneur who's just like trying to launch their business, you know, and they're just grinding and they're going, you know. But
I feel like the secret sauce for success in that area is found in margin.
Of course.
Right. I feel like you need moments of rest, of recharge.
Yeah.
In order to be successful in all these areas.
Sometimes you're going so fast and you are trying to create, you know, a certain life, or trying to advance, or trying to make sure that your kids are doing the right thing, or trying so hard to be successful, and you're grinding so hard that you eventually end up at the level of quote unquote success alone.
Yeah.
Because you forgot, you know, to be intentional in all your relationships, you know, and in your individual life, and then you burn out.
Yeah, I think on the time that we spent together on our vacation, I think it gave me some awareness on, I almost divided it into like 3 different areas where we want margin for, you know, especially for our marriage and our relationship. And I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but number 1, it was margin for play. It was margin for intimacy.
Yeah.
And it was margin for clarity.
Yeah.
And I think one of the great things that I love about our marriage is that we play a lot. Like we have a really good time together. Yeah. I love that we're best friends. I love that we have a friendship. I think when marriages go a long time without margin and you stop playing, you stop being friends, you know, like things can get like really weird. I'm thankful that our friendship really set a solid foundation for our marriage, and setting time for just play, laughing, having a good time, playing pickleball, me beating you every single moment.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I think it really does. It helps us. It really does help us. But also margin for intimacy, right? Physical, mentally, emotionally, intellectually. I think sometimes life can get so busy that there's conversations that you need to have. And because you don't have the time to have these conversations, you start turning on your spouse because you've got frustrations, you've got resentments, you have things that you should have probably talked to them about 2 weeks ago, but because life got so hectic, we never had the opportunity to talk to each other about it. Yeah. Margin allows us space for that. But then margin also allows us space for clarity. Yeah. It allows a space for you to think through what's working in our life and what's not working in our life. Yeah. And what are the things that we need to cut out and what are the things that we need to add so that we can move forward. into the life that we're building together.
And then it's also like, how do we want to show up? You know, it gives you the clarity for that. Like, you know, what are you, you know, what's going to be your role? What's going to be my role? What's going to be our role?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so being able to be on the same page and have clarity around that is so important, you know, to create that type of, to create that kind of margin. And in my world, margin equals boundaries.
Right.
You know, so like, what are the boundaries? Boundaries are there to protect you.
Right.
Right. Like when we're inside of a house, there's windows, and then on the windows, there's curtains and there's doors. Like those things are there to protect you, to protect your home. And it's the same with boundaries.
100%.
Right. So like when we have proper boundaries, time management, that's a boundary. Like how we're choosing to spend our time.
So good.
You know, like how we're investing our time, who we're giving our time to. Like these are some boundaries that create this margin that you're talking about, you know, that is there to protect us, to help us create a healthy rhythm for our life.
So boundaries equals freedom.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
No plan equals slavery.
Yeah.
In a sense. I remember I saw this study. They had this daycare, and at this daycare, it was recess for all the little kids. And there was this fence around the field that they were playing in, and all the kids were having a blast playing in this field. But then there was a moment where it's like 2 days later, they brought all the kids back out. They removed the fence, and the kids didn't know what to do with themselves. Like they all just huddled in the middle, and they felt super insecure and super weird. Why? Because proper boundaries were removed.
Yeah.
I think when we put boundaries in our life, when we say no to the right things, or we say no to the wrong things, when we create systems, rhythms, boundaries, it actually leads us towards a life of freedom.
That's right.
Because when we know what to say no to, we have clarity on what to say yes to.
And every time you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So like me saying yes to every single thing that is presented my way means saying no to you, means saying no to me, saying no to family, you know? So every time we're saying yes to something, what are you actually saying no to?
Yeah, 100%. So I think one of the reasons that we're having this conversation is really because at least for me, I think it's an overflow of what God's trying to teach me in my personal life. I love that today I had the opportunity to kind of like preach on this too. As I was talking about revival, we're going through this series called Winds of Revival. And the whole concept is, how do you harness the winds of the Holy Spirit in your life? How do you posture yourself well in order to be refilled by God? And I think Jesus is the perfect example of this, because Jesus is someone who modeled a life who was full, not busy.
Yeah.
Which I think we should talk about for a second, because busyness does not equal effectiveness. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are busy thinking that they're effective, and then they realize looking back, I actually didn't really accomplish anything. Jesus actually lived a full life, a life that was planned, a life that had intentionality. He allowed room for spontaneity in interactions with people, but Jesus had a plan, and his plan was full. Jesus was like the Verizon network. Everywhere he was, hundreds of thousands of people were behind him, pulling for his attention. Jesus was doing all kinds of miracles. People wanted to be around him. But Jesus demonstrates something so powerful. He demonstrates what it's like to live a life that's both successful and restful. Because Jesus takes an opportunity. I think it's Mark chapter 1, verse 35. I'm going to paraphrase the verse, but it says, before the sun even came up, early in the morning, Jesus found time to pray, to recharge, to take an opportunity to be refilled.
Yeah.
And I don't think that for everyone, it necessarily needs to be in the morning. People's schedules are different, but I think what Jesus is showing us is that it is important when life is full to make sure you find a time in your day where you can schedule prayer, a moment to recharge, and a moment to be refilled.
One of my favorite things actually that you said today in your sermon was, your public life is only as good as your private prayer life.
Right.
You know, and I love that that verse in Mark 1:35 where it says, before the sun even came up, in the very early morning, Jesus was exemplifying priority. Like, my priority is going to be in communion with God.
Right.
You know, I'm going to put the first things first.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was intentional. There's a level of intentionality for me to have to wake up maybe a little extra early so that I can spend time with God, or I'm going to carve out this time in my day so that I can spend time, with God. That's not just going to happen because it's going to happen.
100%.
That's going to take a level of intentionality. And I think that that's what Jesus was exemplifying there. You have to be intentional about it. And then your life is going to be a direct result of that. It's going to be an overflow of that.
100%. Because public power is a result of private devotion.
So good.
So what you do in your private time will always overflow to what you're doing in your public time.
Yeah.
What you're doing when you're in front of people, the things that you say, the way that you act, whatever it is that you're doing is all really a reflection of what you're doing behind closed doors.
Yeah.
How are you guarding that time behind closed doors? How are you refilling yourself? Because our life, the life of a Christian, is always supposed to be one from overflow.
Yeah.
Right? It's which basically that's what rest is.
Yep.
Rest is not just napping or like taking, a fat nap and sleeping for hours. That's not really what rest is. That's part of it.
Yeah.
I think we should incorporate healthy rest rhythms and sleep rhythms. Like, please get 7 or 8 hours of like that kind of stuff matters. But I think the kind of rest that we're talking about is a soul rest.
Yeah.
It's the ability to recharge. For us being faith people, a major part of finding soul rest is having that private devotional life with the Lord.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I know for me that whenever I go to that secret place, which is what Jesus calls it, right? Jesus calls it this prayer closet. Like whenever you go into that place, you always walk out stronger than how you walked in.
Yeah, I love that. So whenever, life is throwing their, its demands at you, when people are setting, certain expectations on you, when life is trying to distract you and pull you, are you going to be intentional?
100%. Because actually, like in that same verse, like right afterwards, the Bible says that Jesus prayed. After he prayed, he got up. And then his disciples were like, yo, like, let's go back to the busyness. Like, we were just in crowds. It was awesome. But there's so many more people out here. Like, there's hundreds of thousands of people who want your attention, Jesus. And Jesus found himself in a place where he was being pulled by people, but he didn't allow other people's expectation to determine the way that he handled his time.
Yeah.
And just because it was a good plan, it didn't mean it was a God plan.
That's right.
Just because it would have been a good thing for Jesus to go and hang out with all these people and minister to the needs of all these people, it actually wasn't God's plan.
Yeah.
Because when Jesus got up, he actually made a decision to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
Right? Just because it's a good thing doesn't mean it's necessarily a God thing.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think that's the secret to life, right? Because when life gets busy, sometimes it's not as simple as, well, here's a good option, here's a bad option. Mm-hmm. Right there, the choice becomes easy. I think oftentimes the struggle is, here's a good option, here's a good option, here's a good option.
Here's what you should be doing, here's what you also should be doing, here's what also you should be doing.
We can hang out with our friends, we can go to the movies, we can work, all these things that
spend time with family, spend time with kids, spend time at church, spend time with so-and-so.
Just because all those things are good, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good plan for you.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that there's wisdom found in that moment when you can separate and hear from God. And I think in that space, God gives you direction.
Yeah. And I know for us, this is true, right? Like when we are in close proximity to God, right? Like as people who prioritize this in our life, like we get a sense of clarity and direction, and we get a sense of empowerment to do things that maybe we don't always feel adequate to do.
Right.
But because we are filled up,
right,
spiritually speaking, because we are empowered, because, there's a sense of faith filled inside of us. Like now we can go out and do the things that maybe we didn't think was possible. Maybe
100%.
we get the confidence, that we didn't have because we didn't feel adequate, and maybe because, we regained a perspective now, in that quiet place, we feel that sense of like joy, that sense of strength, that sense of grit and resilience, that now we can go into our daily life coming from a different place. It's a different type of strength, right? Like when 100%. You're trying to come out with your own strength versus when you are, filled, with the presence of God.
Yeah, this is what it means to live a spirit-filled life.
Yeah.
A spirit-filled life is one where you are led by the power of God. And I think sometimes we can talk about the power of God and it can sound very, very, very mystical, but I think you're hitting on something that's super important. The power of God is displayed in your life when you excel in areas that you're actually underqualified for.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think about this in my personal life all the time because I'm a pastor. I preach almost on a week-to-week basis. And I don't feel like the smartest person. I've never been a great reader. I've never been a good essay writer. I remember my first day of seminary class. I was like, nope. I'm a seminary dropout, you know? Like, I got my bachelor's degree and I was like, I'm done, you know? But I can honestly say that time in God's presence is what gives me the ability to excel in areas that I feel underqualified for.
That's beautiful.
In fact, I would even say that I am grateful. Like, I've learned to be grateful to step into places where I'm underqualified for, because that's where I see God's power show up.
And your weakness.
Yes. And I think a lot of people are stressed out because, if we're honest, the majority of the things that we're handling, we feel unqualified for.
Yep.
I think it could be finance. It can be work. It can be raising kids. All these things are super heavy and we can feel super unqualified in these areas. But I think what margin does is that it gives you the space to spend time with Jesus.
Yeah.
And as a result, he gives you the ability to excel in the things that you feel unqualified for.
It reduces the margin for error.
Yes.
Right? Like, when we are in close proximity, we're going to make it.
Yes.
You know, like, we're going to hit the target.
100%.
You know, because we're empowered in that way.
Yes, exactly. So distance increases error in your life.
That's true for our marriage.
It's true for our marriage.
That's true for our friendships.
My gosh. Okay. Yes. Hold on. Let's pause, because it is very true in our marriage. Because the more distant we are in the marriage, the more error we have in our marriage. The way we talk to each other, the way that we relate to each other, the way we act with one another. Like, we don't show up as our best self when there's this distance here, right? Yeah. I think that thought really came from, like, a couple of weeks ago, where we went with one of our really good friends. It was his birthday. And they like to hunt. Is two guys, yes. Charles and Mike. They love hunting. They have a bunch of guns. You know, we have rarely ever shot anything before. So they take us to this range out in the middle of nowhere. They set up these targets that are super far away. I'm shooting and I'm missing every single shot. Eventually, my friend Charles, he brings the target closer, and I'm nailing it every single time. Yeah. Why? Because the further back I am, the more distance there is. And the more distance there is, there's a multiplied amount of error.
Yeah.
Right? Distance increases error.
Yeah.
But proximity, I think, with God, with each other, always leads to a life that's more successful.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So I've loved this conversation, you know?
Too.
And I know for me, like, I think I'm going to walk away from this conversation challenged, convicted, and inspired, because very much like you, we want to, I think one of the things that I love about us, and we've always had this, is that we have a united passion on wanting to help people, influence people, to build something that's bigger than ourselves, to be a part of something that's bigger than us. But one of the things that I'm realizing is that in order to be able to accomplish big things on the outside, we have to be big people on the inside. So I think I'm walking away with this challenge to really make sure that I'm incorporating margin into my life personally, so I can be the person that God has called us to be. Okay, now, I know one of the things that you were thinking through were some reflection opportunities for our listeners today.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and share that?
We love journaling.
We do.
Right?
Yes.
And so I thought, man, it would be really cool if maybe we can just end today's episode with maybe a challenge and then a reflection question that we can think about, you know, throughout our week.
Yes.
And so I think the challenge for me, or the challenge for all of us, would be assess how you're spending your time.
Right.
Are you being intentional with your time? Where is your time going?
Right.
Are you in control of where your time is going, how you're spending your time? Are you doom scrolling a whole bunch of times throughout your day and losing, you know, when you accumulate that, sometimes that can be hours in a day. You know, are you spending time, you know, intentionally? That would be the challenge. Like, assess where your time is going. And then the reflection question for the week, I think, is, in what ways can we create some margin for ourselves in this week? Whether it's individual margin for our individual life, and margin for our relationship.
Yes.
And then margin for our relationship with God. Like, how can I create that margin in this week?
Yeah.
And see what that can do?
100%. Because public power is always a result of private devotion.
And in order for us to feel connected, we have to disconnect.
That's
sometimes,
right.
You know,
That's
so in this week, are there moments that you can incorporate for you to disconnect from the fullness, the chaos of life in order to reconnect with yourself, your spouse, and God?
That's awesome. All right. Well, hey, you guys are awesome. We're so grateful that you took time out of your schedule to tune in, to join us in on the conversation. Please remember to follow us, subscribe to all the things that you needed to subscribe to. And hey, if this message, if this podcast was at all helpful to you, let us know how. Maybe drop a comment on YouTube or send us a message on Instagram. We would love to interact with you guys more. But until then, we'll see you next time for episode 5 for Conversations with Mike and Steph.